Nats Chat is brought to you by Walters. Make Walters your spot to watch the Capitals march to the Stanley Cup. Plenty of TVs and beer selections.
Caps-Panthers Game 4 this Monday night at 7 p.m. Walters is the perfect place to watch the game.
The 1-2 pitch with Soto running is hit on the ground and under the glove of the diving first baseman Walsh for a hit. Hernandez will trot in to score, and racing for third is Soto as Josh Bell picks up team-leading RBI number 21. And the Nationals lead it 4-2 in the seventh inning.
Now Rainey ready, the 3-1. Outside, ball four. He walks the pinch hitter, the light-hitting Renifo. Now the pitch, swinging a drive, left center field. Robles going back, still back, warning track at the wall. It's off the wall and by him, carrying back toward the infield. This is going to tie the game, and Ohtani stands at second with a double. And Rendon, who is 1 for 4, 1 for his last 15, a chance to be the hero. The pitch, swinging a line drive into center field, a base hit. Robles has it on a hop. Ohtani trying to score, throw to the plate, the tag, too late. And the Angels come from behind and win it in the bottom of the ninth inning. Anthony Rendon holding his hands over his helmet, knowing he's going to get mobbed. And the Angels come back in the bottom of the ninth inning with two-out hits to win the ball game.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Monday, May 9th, 2022, along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, who is at the Big A, Angel Stadium in Anaheim, California. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Well, Sunday was Mother's Day, and Sunday for the Nats ended up being a mother of an ending to a 9-game road trip. The Nats were 1 out away from winning 2 or 3 games. It really one of the best teams in Major League Baseball so far this season. The Los Angeles Angels, the Nats were 1 out away from wrapping up what would have been a very successful 5-4 road trip. But the Nats ended up never getting that last out, as of all people, the ex-Nat Anthony Rendon had a walk-off RBI single, resulting in a 5-4 walk-off loss at the Angels on Sunday. A brutal ending to the Nats' 9-game road trip. Even though all things considered, the Nats going 4-5 on the road trip really wasn't that bad. Nats this season now are 10-20. You know, Mark, as you have been enjoying the beautiful California weather these last few days, us saps in the Washington, D.C. area, we have been inundated with rain this weekend, especially on Friday and Saturday. It rained nonstop on Friday and Saturday. So I guess it's fitting that a guy with the last name of Rainey ended up suffering his first blown save on Sunday. Look, I know that we say that wins and losses for the Nats don't matter this season, but that loss, that was a tough one to swallow on Sunday.
It's really the first one this year, Al, that I think you put into this category. Look, they haven't had a lot of save opportunities. He had been 3 for 3, but he had not allowed a run yet this season. And what makes this one sting, yes, it's the fact that it's Rendon, of course. But even beyond that, to me, it's how well they did against the Angels' big 3 hitters, Trout, Ohtani, and Rendon, and how well they did for 26 innings over the weekend. And if only he had just been able to get him one more out in the 27th inning, we'd be talking about what a phenomenal pitching job they had done in this series. And instead, it's almost like it doesn't matter what happened prior to that. Now, it does matter because there were a lot of, I think, important developments over the course of the weekend that bode well in the bigger picture. But it's tough to think about that in the wake of it because of how this one ended and who ended it, of course, against them. It's not just anybody. It's Ohtani, and then, of course, it's Rendon.
Yeah, let's make something clear. Anthony Rendon did next to nothing in this series. The Nats did an excellent job on Anthony Rendon for so much of this series. Rendon, even with the walk-off hit, ended up going just 2 for 13 with 2 singles and no walks in the series. But, of course, that doesn't feel as good as it otherwise might because of what that final hit ended up being. So let's go through what happened here in this bottom of the 9th inning. Nats came into it up 4-2. Davey Martinez brings in his closer, his ace reliever, Tanner Rainey, who, as we've discussed, has not been used all that much so far this season, but he on Sunday was pitching on a second consecutive day. First time since April 9th and 10th that Rainey pitched on back-to-back days, and he ended up suffering a blown save, his first one this season. Rainey now 3 for 4 on saves this season. He got off to a good start, struck out Jack Mayfield on 4 pitches, but Then the problem started. Rainey issued a one-out, five-pitch walk of a pinch hitter, Luis Rengifo. Rainey then gave up a one-out opposite field single to Taylor Ward to right field. Rainey did then strike out Mike Trout on 4 pitches, and you felt like, all right, here's the storyline. Nats pitchers do such a good job against these 3 big Angels bats of Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Anthony Rendon. But then those latter 2 strike. Rainey then gave up a 2-out game-tying 2-run double to Shohei Ohtani off the left center field wall to tie the game at 4. And then Rainey gave up a 2-out walk-off single to Anthony Rendon to center field for a 5-4 Nats loss. And I tell you, Victor Robles almost came up as a hero because Ohtani barely beat that throw from center field from Robles, who was in the game as a defensive replacement. So all kinds of moments here in this 9th inning in which the game could have ended in a favorable way for the Nats, and it just didn't happen.
Look, as someone who was here watching it all play out in front of him, and, if you try to remove yourself emotionally from it, which I understand is difficult for most people to do, it was really great drama there in that bottom of the 9th because of what you just all said. It's Rainey getting Trout on 97 miles an hour after they had been so successful against him and everyone else all weekend. It's Victor trying to track down Ohtani's ball at the center field wall. He came close. I mean, that ball was crushed. I thought off the bat it was going to be a home run. It just didn't quite get there. But he almost makes the play in center field. And then, like you said, almost gets the ball in from there. And then it's, of course, Rendon with the hit. And I'm watching it all play out in front of me as Ohtani's racing around third. I'm thinking Vic might throw him out. He's got the arm to do it. It wasn't a terrible throw. It kind of skipped off the side of the mound, which maybe slowed it down a little bit. But I think we also have to acknowledge everything that we talk about with Ohtani in terms of his hitting and his pitching. He's really fast on top of all that. He's a good base runner. Somebody else might not have been safe there. I think credit to him for beating the throw there. And up to that point, though, from the moment once they strike out Mike Trout, it's not just Rendon they held in check. It was all of them in the series. Those 3 were combined 5 for 34 with 3 RBI, 3 walks, one of which was intentional, and 11 strikeouts. So they did everything they could to hold those guys in check. Aside, there was the 1 Trout double off Yoan Adon the other night. That's really it. The only hit of consequence until 2 outs in the 9th inning. So I think that makes it even tougher because they had done a brilliant job. Kyle Finnegan, we'll get to him, but what he did in the 7th inning was remarkable. I mean, a lot of these at-bats were coming late in games with runners on base, runners in scoring position. Their pitching staff came up huge in all but one instance, essentially, the whole weekend. And that I can't decide if that makes it softens the blow or if it actually makes it tougher to swallow of how it ended up.
I want to get your take on this. Do you think Rainey's struggles on Sunday at all had to do with this recent infrequent usage and him on Sunday pitching on consecutive days for the first time in basically a month? Do you think that that had anything to do with what happened on Sunday or no?
I think it would be more notable if he had struggled on Saturday, having been ice cold for a while, because he's talked about, Davey Martinez has talked about, he needs to pitch more. They've been trying to find situations for him to pitch, even when they're not save situations. So if he looked rusty on Saturday, then I might have been a little more concerned. But I don't think it was overused. I mean, he was throwing the ball really well. The strikeout of Trout's 97 miles an hour, so it's not like he had anything, didn't have anything on it. And even the pitches that gave up the hits, if you look at them, the Ohtani one's a slider that it was belt high, but it's on the inside corner. He wanted it down. So not great, but not a terrible pitch. And the pitch to Rendon is 97 miles an hour right at the top of the zone. Now, again, he wanted it a little bit higher, but it's still, it's in the strike zone right at the top. And Anthony Rendon is one of the hitters who can get that pitch. Not everyone can. There are plenty of hitters who are going to either not be able to get to it, not get their hands inside to get on, not get on top of it the way that Rendon did. I'm not looking at that. I think the biggest mistake of it all, and he said it himself afterwards, it's none of that. It's the walk to Rengifo way earlier in the inning. He had the opportunity, if he retires the side, to not have to face any of the big names in the 9th. And instead, as soon as he walks Rengifo, now he's in trouble. Unless he can get a double play from Ward, he's going to have to face Trout. And so that made the inning prolong. It made you know that he's going to have to face those guys. And I don't want to absolve Rainey of this because he gives up 3 hits and a walk in the inning. So of course he is to blame. But I think at some point you also have to give some credit to the hitters who he's facing, who you just know you can't contain them forever. These are too good of hitters to be held in check for an entire weekend. And they played with fire and it finally burned them in the bottom of the 9th.
Nats bullpen was so good in games 1 and 2 of this series. Had problems on Sunday beyond Tanner Rainey's. Josh Rogers in the bottom of the 6th faced 3 batters, got just 1 out, was charged with 2 runs. He gave up a leadoff single to Jared Walsh, then issued a 4-pitch walk of Max Stassi. Then Kyle Finnegan came into the game, and he officially tossed 1 2/3 scoreless innings. Now, he did give up a key hit to the first batter he faced, came into the game bottom of the 6th, runners on second and third, 1 out, Nats up 3-0, gave up a 1-out full count 2-run opposite field single to pinch hitter Jack Mayfield to right field to cut the Nats lead to 3-2. But Finnegan then induced an inning-ending double play and then tossed a scoreless bottom of the 7th that featured what Mark made mention of a few minutes ago, consecutive strikeouts of Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Anthony Rendon. I mean, in succession, down went Trout, down went Ohtani, down went Rendon. And then Austin Voth in the bottom of the 8th tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th with 2 strikeouts. So you combine that with what we saw on Friday night, 3 Nats relievers combining for 3 scoreless innings, Austin Voth, Victor Arano, and Paolo Espino. What we got on Saturday night, 3 Nats relievers combining for 3 2/3 scoreless innings, Steve Cishek, Erasmo Ramirez, and Tanner Rainey. And, I think it's important to keep the bigger picture in mind here. The bullpen, for the most part, did a nice job in this series. I know it doesn't feel that way with the way the series ended, but there was a lot to like with this bullpen in this series.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That was a huge inning for Finnegan. And even the hit that he gave up that scored the 2 runs, it was kind of what you said, opposite field. He just kind of like poked it just inside the line. I don't think it was particularly a bad pitch on his part. Voth, and I'll be honest, when I saw him being the one to warm up coming into the 8th inning in what's a 4-2 game, I'm thinking, oh boy, is that really the right guy for this situation? And he came out throwing gas. He's looked a lot better here in the last few outings. Very impressive stuff from him that maybe suggests that he's going to get some more of these opportunities in high leverage spots. We talked about Erasmo Ramirez the other night. You didn't get to have the pleasure of watching that one on your night off, but he was phenomenal for 2 innings. They really did do a good job in a lot of ways over the entirety of the series and really over most of the road trip. And again, not that a blown save in the bottom of the 9th doesn't matter, because it does. And this is really the first time all year Rainey has been tested like that. He'd pitched great, had not given up a run, but he also was not facing those kind of real pressure situations. And we've seen in the past how he can struggle at times with that. So he's still a work in progress. But big picture, there was a lot to like about the way that these relievers went after a really good Angels lineup and, with only a couple notable exceptions, had a lot of success.
Hey guys, it's Al Galdi for Window Nation. It's graduation season, and so that means it is Window Nation's graduation sale. If your old windows are failing or just not making the grade, here's a homework assignment. Call Window Nation and get to the head of the class with 0% financing for 5 full years, 60 months, and get 2 free windows with every 2 that you buy. Window Nation windows are the best. They are made right here locally in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. Over 1,500 custom window combinations are available. Vinyl, wood, fiberglass. Price quotes are valid for 6 months. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you. The longer that you have old, drafty windows, the more money that you're wasting on your heating and cooling bills. Window Nation has saved customers over $60 million on energy bills. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and make sure that you ask Window Nation for the graduation sale that you heard about from Al Galdi. That's 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com and get the special offer. Mention my name, Al Galdi, when you talk to Window Nation.
Needs this out. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Here he comes. Strike 3 called. Cutter at the belt over the outside. And Erick Fedde pulls another Houdini act out of the hat.
Well, when it came to the Nats starting pitcher on Sunday, Erick Fedde tossed 5 scoreless innings. And I'm still not sure how Erick Fedde tossed 5 scoreless innings. We need to launch an investigation. Did he really actually throw 5 scoreless innings with what happened in this game on Sunday? This was some job by Erick Fedde. He issued 5 walks. He threw just 53 strikes versus 44 balls on 97 pitches. He's facing this mighty Angels lineup that features, yes, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Anthony Rendon. And yet somehow Fedde tossed 5 shutout innings. He only gave up 2 hits, both of which were singles. He recorded 4 strikeouts. But, I mean, how about some of the Houdini acts on display by Fedde on Sunday? Scoreless bottom of the first despite issuing a 1-out 6-pitch walk of Mike Trout, despite giving up a 2-out single to Anthony Rendon, despite issuing a 2-out 5-pitch walk of Jared Walsh to load the bases. Still ended up being a scoreless bottom of the first. Fedde tossed a scoreless bottom of the third despite issuing a leadoff 5-pitch walk of Taylor Ward and issuing a 1-out 5-pitch walk of Shohei Ohtani. Fedde tossed a scoreless bottom of the fourth despite issuing a 1-out 6-pitch walk of Brandon Marsh and despite giving up a 1-out bunt single to Tyler Wade on a 1-2 pitch. So, I mean, on the one hand, you're like, well, it wasn't dominance from Erick Fedde, but on the other hand, 5 scoreless innings are 5 scoreless innings. And here's the bottom line now with Erick Fedde, and it may not always feel like it, but he's made 6 starts this season. He has an ERA of 3.90, and he's been at least decent in 5 of the 6 starts. He had that one awful start against Arizona on April 20th, an 11-2 loss, 7 runs, 6 earned, and 3 1/3 innings. But Fedde's actually done a decent job this year, and Sunday wasn't overly impressive, but at the end of the day, 5 scoreless innings, it could have been much worse.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is the maturation of him as a pitcher, where in the past, on a day like that, where he was issuing walks, that he was seeing the pitch count go way up, he would let it get out of control and he would find a way to make that start collapse on him. And instead, like you said, he came through in the spots that he needed to. Gets out of the first inning jam, gets out of the third inning jam, gets out of the fourth inning jam. He did it, as he said, really only having one pitch that he had any faith in, the cutter. Everything else was not working the way he wanted it to, and he just kept turning to that pitch when he needed it. The big one was the strikeout of Ward with 2 outs in the fourth. He caught him looking at that pitch. The pitch count, the 5 walks, all that, it's not good. And, in the long run, you need a guy to be able to give you more than 5 innings if you're not going to put any runs on the board. But sometimes you can take satisfaction in just the bottom line. The bottom line was 0 runs allowed, however he had to do it. And it's not to make an apples to apples comparison here, but it did remind me of sometimes when Max Scherzer, you knew he didn't have his best stuff on a given day, and he was getting himself into jams all the time, and somehow he'd get through it, and you say, boy, how did he pull that off? There was a little bit of that going on here with Fedde, and I think that's an important step for him and something we haven't always seen from him. When everything's on and really good, like it was in Colorado last week, he can be great. But can you still be effective even when you don't have your best stuff? And that's what he did in this one.
Yeah, Fedde's last outing was that 10-2 win at the Rockies last Tuesday night. 1 run in 7 innings. He, in that game, became the first Nats starting pitcher to complete at least 7 innings this season. I mean, he's been, I think, the Nats' second best starter this year. Josiah Gray's number 1, Fedde's number 2. So I give him credit. It was actually, in a weird way, very entertaining to watch him on Sunday because you're like, how does he keep doing this? But he kept doing it, and I think he deserves credit for that. There's something to be said for that, for putting up 5 zeros when you have no business putting up 5 zeros in a game. The Nats offense on Sunday. So this was a weird one for the Nats offensively. A lot of hits. The Nats finished the game with 11 hits, also worked 3 walks, but all 11 of the hits were singles. This was another one of these Nats games this season in which there's just not a lot of power on display. I know the Nats hit the 3 homers on Saturday night, but that power was not on display on Sunday. Nats went 3 for 13 with runners in scoring position. There certainly were opportunities in this game for the Nats to score more than the 4 runs that the team ended up scoring. You had Michael Franco going 1 for 4. He left 5 men on base. Yadiel Hernandez 1 for 4. He left 4 men on base. Juan Soto did not end up having a very good series. We talked about the job ultimately that the Nats did do on Anthony Rendon in this series. Juan Soto in the series 2 for 13, 2 singles and no walks. So, I don't want to paint it as like the offense was terrible in this game because that's not fair. But it obviously wasn't good enough, and it was one of these, I felt like punchless Nats offensive performances, the likes of which we've seen a good bit of so far this year.
Yeah, and there were points there in the 6th and 7th inning that I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're winning this game, but boy, they could be up by a lot more if they just delivered a couple more hits in the right moments. And we've talked about it all season long, the lack of extra base hits for whatever reason that have just not been there. The ability to put the bat on the ball is good, of course, but there are times you need to make more solid contact in that and get the ball in the air. It's still a lot of hard ground balls, not just from Nelson Cruz, who's been like the number 1 culprit of that, but Soto has been doing that a lot. Others have been hitting the ball on the ground a whole lot. Franco, I think, is one of them as well. And the sequence that stood out to me in this one is the top of the 7th. You have the top of the lineup up. You get 3 straight singles. Cesar Hernandez, Juan Soto, Josh Bell. Bell's is actually with Soto running on the pitch, and he gets all the way to third. He scores Cesar Hernandez, and now you still have first and third, nobody out. And what do they end up doing? They can't advance any of them. Nelson Cruz strikes out. Yadiel Hernandez strikes out. Now, I mean, Yadiel's been great, so I don't want to knock on him too much here, but that was a big strike out there in that situation. And then Franco grounds out. If just one of those guys can get the bat on the ball, get it up in the air, get another run home, we might be talking about a very different story come the ninth inning. And I think that kind of stuff nags at Davey Martinez. He understands you can't force guys to hit extra base hits. You know, you can't create power that's not there. But in situations where just making contact and getting the ball in the air and getting a runner home from third is paramount, they still aren't doing that quite enough to win games that they need to win.
Nats also ran themselves into another out in this game. So Riley Adams was the Nats starting catcher and number 8 batter. He went 1 for 3 with a single and a walk. The single came with 2 outs in what ended up being a Nats 2-run 6, but the 2-run 6 could have been much more. Riley Adams ended up getting thrown out at third base and by a mile for the third out of the inning.
2-2. Line drive center field. Base hit. One hop in front of Trout. Franco trying to score as Trout has dropped the ball. Heading toward third is Adams. He's going to be tagged out by a lot.
Now, Mike Trout sort of bobbled the baseball in center field, so I don't know if the Nats got overzealous or what, but you know, you hate to see that. You know, Riley Adams, your catcher, making the third out of the inning at third base like that. And again, he was out by a lot. The play wasn't close.
Right. So as that play is going on, what you have is Gary DiSarcina, the third base coach, is waving around Michael Franco to score on the hit. Riley Adams is the trailing runner. He's approaching second. The play is right in front of him. He sees Trout bobble the ball and got a little overzealous there. I think he did that on his own. I don't think DiSarcina had even gotten to the point of telling him to hold up or keep going. And the problem there is you have to know who that is out there and what he's still capable of doing, even if the ball gets away from him a little bit, because Trout threw him out, like you said, with no difficulty at all. Who knows what else happens that inning if he holds up, but that's an error of aggression, which, you know, generally speaking, you're okay with, but he was out by a lot. And that's one where in your mind you have to be, as you see it playing out right in front of you, you've got to remember not just where the ball is and what happened, but who it is out there and understand that that's not the guy to try to do that on.
No, absolutely not. Now, that play happened off a hit by Alcides Escobar, who actually ended up doing a decent job in this series. Now, he only started 2 games, but Alcides over those 2 games, 3 for 6 with a triple, an RBI single, another single, and a walk. Escobar on Sunday, 2 for 4 with an RBI single and another single. The play we're just talking about, Escobar in that Nats 2-run 6, a 2-out RBI single to center field for a 3-0 Nats lead, despite having been down in the count at 1.12. And then Escobar in the Nats 1-run third, a 1-out opposite field single through the right side of the infield, despite having been down at 1.12. So 2 plate appearances in which he was down 1-2. He turns those plate appearances into productive ones. And, you know, that is the Escobar who we saw last year. So I think we have seen some signs over his last few games of the Alcides Escobar of 2021. I mean, you know, I don't really think that's taking you anywhere or anything like that, but at least it doesn't feel like he's going to be as bad as he was earlier in the season, throughout this season. It feels like he is maybe possibly finding himself offensively anyway. So that was good. He was actually one of their better hitters over the 2 games in which he played.
Yeah, and it's putting the bat on the ball is the main thing. You know, when he was really struggling there a few weeks ago, he was striking out a ton, which is not like him at all. So he's getting the bat on the ball, and he comes up with those hits, those contact hits that we've become accustomed to the last few years. You know, does it suddenly change the outlook on him as their shortstop for the rest of this season and, you know, how he fits into the big picture? No, but at least you're getting something from him. Really, the bottom of the lineup was doing all right in producing. The 2 hits from Escobar, the hit from Adams, a walk from Adams, a sac fly from Lane Thomas, who was hitting 7th. Michael Franco's actually been pretty decent for them here the last few weeks. So, I mean, on this trip in general, like, again, step back, take the big picture outlook here. The lineup did a pretty good job all weekend. They came into Sunday's game averaging almost 7 runs a game on this trip. So there is some stuff happening there. Nelson Cruz reached base 3 times. It was 2 walks, but he hit the home run on Saturday night. So maybe there's a little bit of signs of something from him. I can see the lineup starting to come together. And what's funny is in a lot of ways, this game was probably more like I expected more games to be this year, where they do score some runs, they hold a lead, maybe it kind of goes back and forth late. We saw that a lot late last season. Really hasn't happened this year. They've been mostly lower scoring games that haven't flipped much late for better or for worse. I wouldn't be surprised if the kind of game we saw today, we see more often now moving forward.
Yeah, it certainly felt like coming into the season, you would see losses like this where the bullpen blows a late lead. Unfortunately for the Nats, I mean, they haven't had many late inning leads this season. So I think that's part of why we haven't seen what we saw on Sunday more frequently so far this year. Yeah, it was interesting with Nelson Cruz on Sunday. He had a single and 2 walks. Each one came to begin an inning. He had a leadoff single and then 2 leadoff walks. And I got a kick out of this. Cesar Hernandez had 3 hits on Sunday. All of them were singles. He's not having a great year, but, he's number 1 on the Nats in hits. No Nationals player has more hits than Cesar Hernandez this year. So there you go. I'm not sure that that's really worth a lot, but that's kind of interesting given who else is in that lineup.
Well, so he had a 12-game hitting streak that was finally snapped on Saturday. Kind of a quiet 12-game hitting streak, but it was, and then he bounces back with 3 more on Sunday. So is he the ideal leadoff hitter? No, but he's kind of doing what he needs to do. And I think if Soto is producing behind him, we start paying more attention to what Cesar is doing, because now all of a sudden he's scoring runs off hits by Soto and then Bell behind him. And they kind of need to get that going a little bit more, because it's funny, like individually you look at some of these guys and say, okay, he's doing all right. This guy's doing well. This is all right. But collectively, it's not all just meshing together, and they're not stringing together the right kind of hits in the right moments as a team.
No, they're not. And, you know me, I'm not big on RBI, but that Juan Soto has 6 homers and 8 RBI this season, that really is odd. And it speaks to not enough people being on base when he homers, but it also speaks to him coming up with runners in scoring position and not coming through so far this year. And, runners in scoring position, that can be kind of a fluky, fickle thing. And, it's a small sample size. So you can't get too caught up in it. Oh, he doesn't know how to hit with runners in scoring position. Give the guy time and he'll get hits with runners in scoring position. But that is bizarre. I mean, we are 30 games into the Nats season. Soto has 6 homers and 8 runs batted in. That is a strange stat line.
And I believe he's now 2 for 24 with runners in scoring position. So it's not like he's had no opportunities. Maybe there could be more, but it's not like he hasn't had any, and he has not delivered in those spots. Thank God for Josh Bell behind him has made a big difference in that. So yeah, Juan Soto, we really haven't seen the best version of him yet this year. Been little glimpses here and there, and certainly he's hit for some power and driven himself in a number of times, but he's not driving in other guys. And look, I don't necessarily think this has anything to do with it, but as we talked about all spring going into the season, he's batting second. And I wonder if somewhere in the recesses of his mind that he thinks about that fact, and that it is a little different situation than what you normally expect for a guy who's going to be a big RBI guy driving in runs. I'm not suggesting they change that, but if it keeps going at this rate and for whatever reason he's not driving in more runs that aren't himself, maybe you do have to look at somebody else hitting second and drop him to third. I don't know that those extra at-bats, I haven't looked it up to see how many extra at-bats he's gotten by hitting second right now versus third, but maybe he would end up with some more opportunities to do something and just feel more comfortable as the kind of hitter that he is, batting third than batting second. I'm sure you're going to disagree with me on this one.
Well, no, I mean, look, all one should do is look across baseball, and great hitters for teams are batting in number 2 spots throughout the sport. So, I mean, and I'm sure he knows that. Like, he's not a dummy. I'm sure he's aware of that. It's interesting, though, you bring up about the extra plate appearances. So over 162 games, each spot in the lineup is worth more or less like 17 plate appearances. So, it's not nothing, but if it's going to if you feel like it's drastically reducing the performance of someone, then you could say, well, it's not worth the extra plate appearances if the guy is going to be, 70% of what he can be. So, that would be an interesting thing to look at. But I would just say this, if they took Soto out of the number 2 spot, I would put Bell in the number 2 spot. You need to get your best guys up there as often as possible. The Angels for parts of this year have batted Ohtani, Trout, Rendon 1, 2, 3. They've done that. And look, we know Joe Maddon is Davey Martinez's mentor. So, I don't think teams should ever be reluctant to just give their best batters the most plate appearances possible.
Yeah, if you have the depth to do that, then yeah, absolutely. And I think the Nats, what Josh Bell has done has helped a lot. If Nelson Cruz is hitting, I think it's also a different story, because now you have a legitimate threesome. But I'll give you another name that you can make the case could hit second right now in front of Soto, and that's Yadiel Hernandez. A lot of what he does kind of profiles as a number 2 hitter, if you think about it. And if you get the 2 Hernandezes at the top, followed by Soto and Bell, it might be worth a look here at some point. I think we do have to talk about Nelson Cruz maybe not hitting cleanup for very long unless he starts getting going a lot more than he has.
Yeah. I think that's a conversation that does need to happen at some point if it hasn't happened already. All right, so we actually have quite a bit of non-game Nats news for this installment of the Nats Chat podcast. Before we get to the retirement of a prominent and popular former Nat, Steven Strasburg and Joe Ross, it sounds like we're getting closer to minor league rehab assignments for these guys. What's the latest on them?
Yeah, so they are now ready. They've thrown a couple of live bullpens, as they call them, facing live hitters down in Florida, and now they're ready to take it the next step, which is a simulated game in Florida. So that means like multiple innings, 2 innings, where you are facing hitters and trying to sort of simulate the idea of at-bats. They may not have fielders out there or anything, but you want to throw roughly like 15 to 20 pitches, then come back to the dugout, sit in the dugout for 10, 15 minutes, come back out and throw another inning. So the funny thing is just by happenstance, Strasburg and Ross are on the same pitching schedule right now. So they can do this in unison, and it's like one guy's pitching for the visiting team, one guy's pitching for the home team. They'll get their 2 innings in against whoever's down there right now in Florida and move on. But that's pretty much the last step before you then go out on a minor league rehab assignment. Now, that doesn't mean like within a week that's going to happen necessarily. They might need more than one of these simulated games. And at some point here, they will start being on a true like 5-day pitching schedule. But I think we're getting close to that point that they now send them out and maybe they're ready to go 3 or 4 innings in a minor league game. And you do that a few times. And all of a sudden, once you get the pitch count up, it's kind of like you're ready to go. So, I'm saying we're about a month away, I'm going to guess, on both of them. I mean, there are a lot of things that still can go wrong, can change that timeline depending on how it goes. But if things go as everybody hopes, I'm thinking we're about a month away maybe from seeing both of them in the big league rotation.
And is one guy ahead of the other guy, or you think it could be that both guys come up at more or less the same time?
It seems like they're about the same, like I said. And now something could happen on one or the other that delays it or slows it down. But if they both do what they're supposed to, in theory, they should be throwing the same number of pitches, same number of innings on roughly the same schedule now. So I could see it. We got a little ways to get there, but it'll be kind of fascinating to see when the time comes. Do they call them both up simultaneously? Do they put them back to back in the rotation? Who loses their spot? I mean, there are a lot of questions to be answered at some point here. But boy, that would be a nice problem to have if that does happen, let's say in about 4 weeks from now.
Yeah, will be interesting to see. The other big Nats news from Sunday is that the baby shark is retiring. We on Sunday afternoon learned that Gerardo Parra is retiring and is joining the Nationals front office as a special assistant. If you remember, he was with the Nats in spring training. He did not make the Nats major league team out of spring training, and he ended up opting not to report to AAA Rochester. I was actually going to ask you about Parra because we had not heard much about his status and what was going on with him, and sure enough, he has decided to not report to Rochester and to join the Nats. Now, joining the front office as a special assistant, is this like George Costanza's special assistant to the traveling secretary, or is this like a real position in the Nats front office?
Look, they have a lot of special assistants to the GM. They come in a variety of different roles. Some of these are scouts who go around and look at players from all over the country and give Rizzo reports on them. But others can be more, in uniform and helping out in more of a coaching role. That's what I would guess we're talking about here. Parra's best qualities are his personality, his ability to bring out the best in everyone and to keep everyone loose. So we'll see. We haven't had a chance to really ask anyone about this yet, what it's going to entail. But my thought is more likely to be seeing him in uniform before games, on the field, in the clubhouse. It might not just be at the big league level. There could be some bouncing around to the minor leagues and helping out some guys there. But I don't think Mike Rizzo is going to be sending Gerardo Parra out to some podunk town in Oklahoma to scout a first-round draft pick. It's not going to be that kind of special assistant. I think it's going to be big league and, in uniform kind of stuff.
It's really an interesting legacy, if I can use that word, with Gerardo Parra that he has with the Nats. Because obviously there's the baby shark craze. There's the post-home run dugout dancing craze. We had all of these things in 2019. But what I think can get kind of lost is that he was a legitimately productive player for the Nats. This wasn't just some baby shark gimmick for a guy who was doing nothing for the team. No, he actually meaningfully contributed in 2019. Remember what happened? The Nats signed Parra in May 2019 off him having been DFA'd by San Francisco. He looked done with San Francisco. He was not good at all for them offensively. He comes to the Nats 2019 regular season, 204 plate appearances, slugs .447. He, in that 2019 regular season, posted the following slash line with runners in scoring position. Batting average, .373. On base percentage, .421. Slugging percentage of .824. He, with the bases loaded in the 2019 regular season, hit 2 grand slams. So this guy was legitimately productive for them during that incredible run to make the postseason in 2019. Didn't necessarily play a lot in that 2019 postseason, but he was a key factor in the Nats making that postseason. And then one of my favorite things is, okay, the Nats bring him back last year for a second stint. Remember, he didn't play in the majors in 2020, was in Japan. And in his first plate appearance for the Nats at the major league level last season, what happens?
Here's the pitch. Swinging a line drive, base hit left field. Down the line, toward the corner. Parra rounding first, heading for second. It's a double for Gerardo Parra.
He provides a pinch, 1-out, opposite field double into the left field corner in a 2-run Nats seventh to drive the Mets starter Taijuan Walker out of the game. The Nats won the game 5-2. This was last June 20th, and Nationals Park erupted in a manner in which the stadium really hadn't since that 2019 World Series. I mean, you talk about like having a knack for the moment. This guy really had it. So, you know, I don't want to overstate what he was for the team, and I know that not everyone loved the Baby Shark stuff, but it's pretty cool what he did as a Nationals player.
It's a true impact from someone who, in the grand scheme of things, wasn't here that long when you think about it. And I agree. What he did in 2019 off the bench, let's not diminish that. I know a lot has happened since then, and you know, not all of it was great for him performance-wise, but for a period of time there, as you outlined, he was as clutch a hitter as they had and was consistently coming up in big spots for them and delivering big hits when they needed it. This is at a time, remember, when the team is trying to climb back from 19-31. And even when they started playing well, we're still thinking they're not going to have enough time to make it all the way back. And he was a big part in keeping that going all summer long. And, you know, the Baby Shark thing happens by accident. He's slumping at one point. He decides to shake up his walk-up music. He has them play what his daughter's favorite song is. It's in the opener of a doubleheader against the Phillies in June. The crowd kind of laughs at it the first time, like, what is this? And he ends up with an RBI hit, and he had a couple of hits in that game. And now all of a sudden, oh, well, this is going to stick. This is going to become a thing. And it was so remarkable to see how it truly, naturally all developed over the next few weeks where the fans got into it. The Nationals didn't try to make that happen. It just happened naturally. The fans loved it. It became a thing. And it became a thing because Parra would deliver in those situations so often. And my favorite ones were not when he was ever in the lineup and you're playing Baby Shark, you know, in the bottom of the second with 2 outs and nobody on. The favorite ones were in the bottom of the seventh. And here he comes off the bench and they've got a couple runners in scoring position. This is a big situation. And you could feel the energy that it brought everybody. And then when he would deliver, the reaction to it was as big as anything you were going to get all year long. So it was legitimate. They put the little Baby Shark in the World Series ring, not as a gimmick, but because it did mean something to them. It really was a big part of that season and that run, and he was so important to it. So I think no matter whatever happens, I think he is always going to be one of the first names we think of associated with that team and that championship. And even if he doesn't work for them for many years, there will always be times that his name comes up or he'll come back to visit and is always going to get a warm welcome in D.C.
Well, the Nats on Monday will have a much-deserved day off in terms of no game. This was some road trip, 9 games. The Nats haven't played a home game since April 28th, which feels like about 5 years ago right now. And what's up next for the Nats is a 6-game homestand against 2 of the best teams in the majors so far this season, a 3-game series against the Mets, followed by a 3-game series against Dusty Baker and Houston. You know, I know that strength of schedule is more of a football thing than a baseball thing, but consider the Nats' schedule so far this season. Started the year with a 4-game series against the Mets, then a 3-game series at Atlanta. You've had 2 series already against San Francisco, which is having a good season. You just played a 3-game series at the Angels, who are having a very good season. And up next, 3 more games against the Mets, and then 3 games against the Astros. Both of those teams are doing really well so far. The Nats are not a good team, let me make that clear. But boy, this schedule has done the Nats no favors so far this season.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And really, aside from the 8-game losing streak on the last homestand, which was pretty wretched, everything else so far has kind of been okay. Some frustrating moments to be sure, but there have been some encouraging moments as well. What they did in San Francisco, I think, was good. We saw some good things in Colorado, and really we saw good things in this series. And if Tanner Rainey makes one more pitch in the 9th inning, we're talking about them winning a series on the road in Anaheim against such a good team. A 5-4 road trip. I think there are reasons to feel good about how some of this is going. It doesn't suddenly make them into a good team or a team that's going to contend anytime soon. But if this season is about finding the positives, especially from the young guys who could figure into the future, I think there is some evidence of this 1 month in, and not just 1 or 2 guys, but like 3, 4, 5 guys that you could say, okay, I've seen development there. I've seen some stuff that makes me think they could be a part of this for the long term.
Yeah, and one thing that was nice about the road trip, the starting pitching really wasn't bad. At times was quite good. And it's starting to feel like, okay, maybe the starting pitching isn't like a complete disaster this year. Like maybe these guys are growing, and it's not going to be every game that you close your eyes after the 2nd inning because you're afraid that the starter is going to come out after 3 2/3. Like we're starting to see guys go 5, 6 innings. We're starting to see some good outings. So that's good. Hopefully we see more of it. We shall see. Big test coming up with this 6-game homestand. You tell us what you think. You can hit us up on Twitter at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. Your memories of the Nats 2012 National League East championship season, the first season of the Nats' tremendous run, 2012 through 2019. Let us know what you remember about that 2012 season, your favorite moments from that 2012 season. You can send a written email or a voice memo email, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to sponsor the Nats Chat Podcast, hit up Tim Shovers again, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Now the pitch. Swinging a long drive to right center field. Way back. Going. Gone. Goodbye. Gerardo Parra hits his 8th home run of the year. He drives in his 4th run of this game with a blast over the big wall in right center field. Yasiel Puig never moved. Bang! Zoom goes Parra. And dancing through the conga line, a huge hug from Anibal Sanchez.